All right, solving quadratic equations by factoring. Now we're actually, in this video, we will be solving equations by factoring. And we have gone over all these four types of methods. Actually, there's five, because AC method, there's an easy version of it, and then there's a hard version, depending on what A is. All right. So as we do each problem, I will take you through the steps of factoring again. Now, when solving quadratic equations by factoring, the first thing you have to do, you got to set the equation equal to 0. Right? So we got 2x squared plus 5x equals 3. It should be equals 0. So before I can do anything else, I have to set that equal to 0. In other words, I got to bring the 3 back over. So of course, when we bring it across equals, we got to subtract it. Why are we subtracting 3? Because this 3 is already positive. You got to add or subtract the opposite of what that number is. So now I have 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 is equal to 0. All right, so the first step is completed. Second one, now we can factor completely. So that goes back to these four methods. All right, again, first thing we have to do is check for the GCF. Is there anything common in all three terms? No, nothing's common. There's no variables, and the coefficients don't have anything in common. All right, so we go on to the next. Is it 2, 3, or 4? Well, it depends on the number of terms you have. Well, I have 3 terms. So that means it has to be one of these two. Is it the easy AC or is it the hard AC? Well, it depends on what A is. So remember, standard form is AX squared plus BX plus C. So A is the number that goes with X squared. So for us, A is 2. All right, so that means we're using the hard AC method in order to solve this. So hard AC says we got to take A and C, so 2 times 3 is 6. So we got to find the factors of 6. That when I subtract, I get 5. All right, so the factors of 6 are 1 and 6, 2 and 3. I want to subtract to get 5. Well, it has to be that one. All right, so 6 minus 1 or 1 minus 6 gives me the 5. So now I take 2x squared. Now this 5x, I'm going to rewrite using 1x and 6x. So I'm going to put x and 6x. Then I have a minus 3. Now I left these two blank because I got to figure out what the signs are. Subtraction means one of these got to be positive, one's got to be negative. Well, if you look here, it tells me that the larger number, the 6, has to be the positive. So therefore, this has to be the negative. Now, factoring the AC, the hard AC method, now we go back to grouping because now we have 4 terms. All right, and this one, x's are in common, so I factor on x, so I get 2x minus 1. Here, 3 is common, so I'm going to factor out positive 3, so I get 2x minus 1. These are the same, so it means I'm doing it correctly. So I'll take that, rewrite it in parentheses, cross them out, and in parentheses, I'll put what's left over, x and a positive 3. Now this is all equal to 0. All right, so we factor completely. Now we set the factors equal to 0. So I'm going to set this equal to 0. And I'm going to set that equal to 0. So now I have 2 equations I got to solve, and they're basic algebraic equations. So they're real simple to solve. All right, that's all that factoring does. Helps it break it down to this where it's easy to solve. So here I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And divide both sides by 2. So I get x is equal to 1/2. There's one solution. Subtract 3 from both sides. And there's my other solution. So that's how you solve quadratic equations by factoring. So let's do some more examples. The next example, all right, is already set equal to 0. So now I can go ahead and start factoring. Well, if you notice, I only have 2 terms. 2 terms means I got to use difference of 2 squares. All right, so we got to find out, is this the difference of 2 squares? Well, 49, that's 7 times 7, so that works. A squared, that's A times A. It's a difference, so that's what we need. And then 16 is 4 times 4. So yes, this will be difference of 2 squares. So I set up my 2 parentheses, put 7a in one, put the other 7a in the other, put 4 in one, and put 4 in the other. You make one positive, make one negative. All right, then I double check to make sure I can't have to use difference of squares again. So here I'm good. So I am factored completely. So now I set the factors. There's 2 of them. Set each one equal to 0. Now I got 2 equations, simple, basic algebraic equations. So subtract 4 from both sides. Divide by 7, so I get a is equal to negative 4 over 7. So there's one solution. Here I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Divide both sides by 7. And there's my other solution. Let's try another one. Okay, first step, we got set equal to 0. So that means I have to add 2x to both sides. So I get 5x squared. Plus 2x is equal to 0. All right, now, before I go any further, remember, the first step in factoring is GCF. Is there a GCF? Okay, 5 and 2, there's no GCF with that, but if you notice here, there's x's common in both. And remember, you take the variable with the smallest exponent, so I take x to the first power. So that for 5x plus 2 set equal to 0. All right. Now, what's left over, how many terms do I have? I have 2 terms. Well, 2 terms states, if I can factor it, it has to be difference of 2 squares. Well, can I rewrite 5 as something times something that gives me 5? No. X, that's not x squared, so that doesn't work, and that doesn't work. And plus, it's a sum here, so this definitely will not work. So that means this cannot be factored anymore. So we are completely factored, which is nice. All right, so that means I'm going to set, so this is considered a factor, and this is a factor. So I set each of those equal to 0. So I got x equals to 0, and I have 5x plus 2 is equal to 0. Well, this one's done for us, which is nice. Here, subtract 2. Divide by 5, and there's my other solution. All right, let's look at one more example. All right, so let's see here, it's set equal to 0, so we're going to bring this over and this over. So I get 8x cubed minus 2x squared minus 10x equal to 0. All right, do I have a GCF? 8, 2, and 10. So 2, let's see here, 2, 8, and 10. Nothing else come out. So my GCF is 2 for the coefficients. X, and x. So there's an x. I take the one with the smallest exponent. That's assumed to be a 1 there, so that means I'm going to be taking 2 to the x to the first out. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. Subtract 3 minus 1 is x squared. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And then equal to 0. All right, so now what's left over is this. How many terms is that? It's 3 terms. All right, so that means it has to be the AC method. All right, now, is it the easy or the hard? Well, here A is 4. So that's not equal to 1. So therefore, this is going to be the hard AC method. So that means I got to take A and C, which is 5, multiply them, so that's 20. So I want the factors of 20. That if I subtract, will give me, what's understood to be there? A 1. So the factors are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 3 doesn't work, 4 and 5. All right, so if I subtract, this is the ones that will give me the result of 1. All right, so I have 2x. All right, so what we're going to do now is I want to take this off to the side here. All right, so let's go ahead and factor this. So we have 4x squared. All right, we're going to rewrite it as 4x and 5x. We're not using x anymore, or 1x. And then we got minus 5. We're subtracting, so that means either the 5x or the 4x has to be positive or negative. One of them has to be positive or negative. This sign right here tells me the bigger one has to be negative. So this will be a negative, so therefore this has to be positive. Now we go into the process of factor by grouping. So now I factor out 4x, so I get x plus 1. Factor out negative 5, I get x plus 1. Those are the same. So I keep that, cross them out. What's left over goes in their own parentheses. So we have factored that, so I'll bring it over here now. And now I have 3 factors. You guys set each one equal to 0. So I got 2x is equal to 0, x plus 1 is equal to 0, 4x minus 5 is equal to 0. So divide both sides by 2, so x is equal to 0. There's one solution. Subtract 1. Another solution. Add 5. Divide by 4. And there's my last solution. Right. This problem, there was a lot of work. All right. Do not freak out about that. You will come across some problems that will be kind of intensive. I mean, they're all it's manageable. It's just a lot of steps involved. All right. So just take your time and deep breathely. All right. Or breathe deeply. All right. I'm glad this is math class. If it was English, I would be fired. All right? So you will come across problems, again, that will involve quite a few steps. All right? You're not going to have many of those, but yes, you still will come across them. All right? So just take your time.